Alright, the time's come. We've got to rip the boat apart so we can start fitting the new system. So first thing to do, clean out the wheelhouse so we can get into that battery room area. Brupeg was a sunken fishing trawler that was stripped out and ready for the scrapyard. She's just completed a 10-year rebuild that's brought her back to life. With the help of volunteers and funded by our Patreons, community and subscribers, she'll be crewed by passionate people from around the world. If you'd like to be involved and support the project, please consider joining us on Patreon or subscribe to the channel. There's a link in the description below.
With the boat quieter after Burke's departing, he's getting used to travelling in Indonesia on the next leg of his journey. We'll miss him, but we have no time because we're expecting Diedericks in the next couple of days to start the electrical upgrade.
So this is still a fully functioning battery room. We need to strip it apart so it just becomes a hole that we can start filling out with new blue boxes. I think we'll start by ripping apart the wall of shame. That wall, apart from the timber that needs to come off, is basically stripped down. We've got the various Victron gear, so the charge controllers, the servo is still good. It's tucked over the corner, but I've got the servo still out there. This is basically rubbish because every one of them had smoke come out of them, so they're to go. Managed to keep the cabling. Don't know if we'll actually use any of this, but it's there if we need any little bits or offcuts or links or anything like that.
So you'll have seen Dame already pull the charge controllers off the wall. We've got to get the rest of this done. Dee's confirmed that he's here tomorrow around 6 in the evening, so we've got 2 days, well 1.5 days really now, to get the last bits done. So we need to sand everything. We need to take the old plywood off that was glued on. In Brupeg, everything is like what we can afford and what we can manage, the best decisions we can make. But of course, in our minds, everything is kind of sequenced. You know, we know that something's going to be changed out, quite a few things actually, because what was most important was to keep going. So we're going to pull those things out and we're going to start. I'm smiling. We're just going to leave the inverters and the batteries running, so we've got some hot water, we've got lights, you know, that stuff that makes it easy to function. Tomorrow morning we're going to pull that out, so it's going to be a couple of days of not much working on board, but that's okay. We'll get to it. Dame's also redone the shower and the plumbing, which was of course making do. You know, in Australia, wherever you are in the world, you may be able to access cheap and good stuff for things like plumbing for a boat like this, but here we just can't, so we had to make do. So now we're not making do. We've been able to find the right thing after years of looking, and of course we've got the opportunity to change that out, so we're doing it. So a lot's happening behind the scenes, but we're going to get to it.
Things have progressed, so we've got that in pieces. However, I need to deal with this box. So we've got the cutout that we just made. I actually had to make these cutouts slightly wider because I realized I made them wrong. I'll show you what I did. I made them to suit the width of the breakers, not the width of the cover that goes over top. And what that would have meant is when it's bolted in place into the aluminium thing, we can't actually get to the screws that tighten up the terminals. So I had to cut it wider so that when you take the faceplate off, The faceplate will sit over top and make it look pretty, but when you take it off, you've got full access to the screws. So cut them wider. Need to start fixing the aluminium panel into the U-tube box. Also, the week of energy poverty has started, so we've got power cords running everywhere through the boat to multi-connectors all through the boat trying to run stuff because we've had to disconnect our 2 inverters. So our inverters are now officially offline and won't be put back online, and we're starting to strip all the wiring out. So what we need to do on this board is basically make a hinged door. So we've got a physical wooden stop on this side, and we need to put this black piano hinge running up down here, and then we're going to pot rivet the aluminium to that piano hinge. We can take the door off at any point, either by drilling the pot rivets out or taking the screws, whatever. Doesn't, either way is easy, just as easy. We need to, on this side, do a locking mechanism. So let's just get the cupboard up there, the face up there on the piano hinge, and then we can figure out how to do the locking mechanism. All of this is a bit of a race against time. D, the AC electrician that's coming to do the work here, is a mate of ours. He lives on the south coast of New South Wales, and he's driving up. He did a 12-hour day yesterday. It's 4 hours to Sydney. He drove from his place to Sydney, and he's driving from Sydney. He's now in the Gold Coast, stayed at the Gold Coast, which is 6 hours south of us, and he's driving from Gold Coast this morning up to us. So we'll see him about maybe 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we're he's going to be tired when we get here because it's a long drive, but we're racing against time because we only have a very short space of time because he's heading to Europe for 2 months after all of this. So we have to smash it out in a very, very condensed time frame. I've got a line marked on here in case you're wondering how I know where to put it. It's just marked in black pen, so it's impossible to see. Alright. 1. Alright, got to get this thing lined up. So that's how it's going to sit. This will be covered in black material, so it's going to look quite different than what it looks right now, but it's kind of nice having it cleaned up aluminium. Grinding discs, 1mm grinding discs, universal shims, so 3 of them. That gives us 3mm, approximately. I'm trying to get it even top and bottom. Too much. About there then. Done! There we go. Because I don't know anything about moderation, I've got about 65 rivets holding it in, and 2 little clips so that this door doesn't fling around at sea. Alright, I've mounted one of the DIN rails. I take the cover off. You can see that the actual frame of the DIN rail is sort of like nicely riveted in there. It is only held on by one at the top and one at the bottom. That's normal because when you put the cover on, you put like a screw or a bolt or something in the top corner and then one at the bottom corner, and that's how the cover's held on. So you end up with 4 fastenings holding this guy here down, but 2 of them are permanent, 2 of them are temporary. Now, what I need to do, I've got 3 more slots that I need to fill up with DIN rails, but I need to figure out the order I'm going to do this in because, bang, we have 4 of these DIN rails. 2 of them are currently being used in there, and that's all been disconnected. We've got no shore power, we've got no inverters, so none of that's live at the moment, but I don't want to pull it apart until Dee's here because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not an electrician and he might want to do it in a particular way, but I need to transfer those 2 DIN rails across, and I've got 1 more that needs to go in here. So what I'm thinking is have 2 DIN rails in here, and then you can transfer all of that across, and then we'll strip those guys out and they'll become the DC. But what that means is we have to figure out, do we do like AC down there and DC down this side, or do we do AC and DC? So just trying to ponder in my head what I think would be the most logical layout. Alright, with the DIN rails in, what I want to do in here is some cable management. So we're going to have cables coming up from the bottom, cables coming from the top down, and I don't want them just like loosely flopping around in here. So we went to the scrappy the other day and we found these. Excuse the chaos and rubbish, but 2 of these guys, stainless steel grids, and I'm going to screw those in and use those as big stainless cable trays. I think they're going to work really well. There you go, front done, and inside looking resplendent with its stainless cable trays.
So D is due in about 4 hours. He's just contacted us. He's well on his way up here. Damien's attacking the box in here. Got the supplies in for a few days. And we're just going to keep working away at things. There's jobs in the background that are happening. We've got to get the gen set done before D goes, hopefully. Alright, I've been putting it off for too long. Let's get in and start ripping this apart.
progress so far, a pile of wires, and then a whole bunch of various parts that have been taken out, things like this shunt we're going to reuse and so on. But you would have seen that, and there's a very logical reason why that's happened. To make stuff easy to mount in this room, we get plywood, we stick it down to either the floor or the wall or whatever it is, so that we can then screw things onto it. And we've got a non-conductive surface, and we've also got a surface that's quite thick that we can go and put screws through. The issue that we had, the previous paint that was in this room was chlorinated rubber. It's quite thick. There was obviously a crack somewhere in that paint. When we glued that when we glued that plywood down to the chlorinated rubber paint, we did end up getting some water in this room. It's a long story, but we had some plumbing run through here that leaked, and we got some water sitting in the back. I didn't realise it, but there was obviously a crack in that chlorinated rubber, and it had gone underneath the plywood, between the paint and the steel, and then just sat there for a long time. We didn't know about it until we ripped this plywood up. So we have to get in there and deal with that rust before we put any new paint down. This is a really good example. I built this wall a while back, and I was able to do everything from sandblast, prime, paint, all the way up to the top coat. And you can see how good a condition that is. It hasn't had water sitting on it, the paint doesn't have cracks, there's no oxygen that's got to this. So even if it's been, God, I don't know, it's probably been 6 or 7 years since I put this wall in, and it's in perfect condition. It's basically as good as the day I put it in. This stuff here on the ground is the original, and the only reason why it's failed is because the paint failed. And I can see the original primer, so I know it's basically the original paint that was on the boat when we got it, that's let go, and that's why we've got the rust. Alright, plan of attack. So D is here in about an hour. We've got this piece of plywood off. There's still bits and pieces of ply that we have to rip off. We have to deal with this part of the floor. We can't do that in the marina berth that we're in. We've got these bits of old sicker and stuff like that on that front wall that we need to deal with. And then finally we need to drag these guys out and put a ply cladding over top of that. So we've redone all the plumbing and piping and stuff so that it's a once in a lifetime, never going to have to touch it again for a long time type plumbing. No bloody hose clamps and rubber pipes, it's all braided stainless. That's working really well. We've got a plywood wall that's going on that, and that's why those standoffs were built, so that all of that pipe work can go behind it. So once we've got those guys out the road, we'll be able to get to that. But we have to get in here and start sanding now. Because we can't make lots of noise in the berth that we're in right now, we're going to move the boat first thing in the morning down to the commercial dock at the end of the marina. We're going to do our needle gunning and get rid of all of that rust so that we can deal with it properly. And then we're going to put some etch on it down there, on that floor area down there. And we'll bring the boat back and we'll carry on with the rest of the jobs. Ooh,
that got hot.
Gosh, how could you tell? The BMS is melted.
Yeah.
This is one of our old batteries, and it's like you can see that one there is 25.8. That one's off, but it's the same, basically same voltage. This one's 11 volts, which
it still turns on though. That's impressive.
They're not supposed to get that low.
I think that's why they haven't been charging. This has just been
shit house.
Taking all the heat and turning it into heat.
Yeah. That's where all of our charge has been going. What's going on is this BMS. This is the basically the controls for the battery. You can pretty much see it's just melted. It absolutely stinks like burnt out electrics. So yeah, we're doing some
exploratory.
Yeah, open heart surgery on a battery. Yoink. Some are brown, some of them are not. Testy. You're on AC. Oh, there you go. DC.
Might come back to life. They're not terrible.
2. So they're all 2 or 3.
I think it's pretty bad for lithium, but
yeah. Oh.
Getting your BMS and fire it up again.
Brupeg's big and not easy to steer. Damien's learning first how to handle her. We decided early on that we had to learn how to do this. We have to be able to berth her wherever we need to, for whatever reason, big or small. And today's part of that. So we have to needle gun that rusty area in the battery box. So we've got to get her to the diesel wharf. we're allowed to do noisy work here. We're going to be here just for today and we'll be leaving before sundown. As always, the guys are sorting out the lines. Kat's back on board. She's happy. While Dee and I get on with other jobs, Damien tackles the noisy needle gunning in the battery box. Of course, our first preference is always sandblasting. It gives a great surface, rough surface for the paint to hold on to. If we use some rust kill, the needle gutting should be enough for the paint to hold.
Okay, so Jess is getting ready in the kitchen at the moment, but she's about to climb into here and start painting up the areas of bare steel in the battery room. Dee at the back here. We're going into town. We're just doing a bit of a diagram of our circuit board that we're going to be building for the AC side of things, and then figuring out who's got what stock in town so we can buy the right cable.
Anywhere it needs it, I'm putting on Jotun Mastiff 90, it's an etch. And treating the rust with phosphoric acid.
So at the electrical wholesalers, we picked up some 300mm cable tray. Dee has gone through and we've figured out cables. We don't have 10mm 3-core, so what we ideally want is basically 10mm 3-core, but what we have found is under there's a big roll of 4-core and earth, so 5 cores of 6mm tinned flex, and we're going to pair 2 together so that we've got basically the same amount of square area, and we've got it in a big single package, so we can send that down to the engine room. We're going to modify this slightly. The electricians have both told me, you silly bugger, you should have talked to us before you built this, because they don't want swinging DIN rails. So what we're going to do is modify it and have the DIN rails mounted out the back here, and then you close the door and it will seal on top of the DIN rails so that it looks pretty. So similar effect, but just done in a different way. And the reason they want it done that way is because on the door like this, the cables have to bend. So every time you open and close that door, you're allowing for the cables to bend. So you have to have big loops going up and so on like that. If it's solid mounted, the cables can be held much more rigidly, and you just close the door basically for looks. So there's a really easy solution to that. I'm going to do that soon. We're starting to get 150,000 DIN rail breakers. Wow, that's a good shot, isn't it? We've just done a trip into town and we've got a mountain of stuff. Oh, as well as all this. Have a look at this. Cable. So that drummer cable, and those smaller drums of cable, that's $3,000 worth of wiring. In case you're wondering why we've never done it like this before, is because it's exceptionally expensive wiring when you're doing it properly, and we've always cobbled things together. Small cable tray, that's going to be going in the battery box to basically mount all of these cables onto.
Once Dame's sure that the board is going to fit, it's just a matter of gluing it on.
This one actually probably can lift off the ground.
Okay.
And figure out like height, do we go up or down? And what we realised that if we go like in an ideal world you'd want it off the ground so that you can always clean under it, or you know, whatever paint, whatever you need to do, maintain under it. But the issue that we're finding is that if we go too high, we cover up all of these here. We could cut the plywood down.
I think we have to cut the plywood. I think you have to have it off the ground.
So to allow for clearance for all of this stuff here, that's what these timber standoffs are. This one here and the other one. And it gives us 45mm of clearance on everything at the back, which is enough, but we just have to get our vertical height right.
Dame's drawing where he needs to get some clearance for the plumbing, while D continues on with the electrics. Dame's off to the marina office to check how long we can be on this work berth, and he's picking some stuff up from Pat's boat.
This will be the changeover switch for generator and inverter. In case there's ever an issue with the inverter, you can isolate the inverter and just run straight off the generator, and this will feed all the house circuits.
Yep, just check where you are. Okay, yep.
Yeah, as hard as you can.
Yeah, okay. Dame and D spend a lot of time figuring out mounts for the new inverters.
Actually, you know what we could do?
You know what I mean?
2-inch on the wall, stainless.
Yeah.
And then the 3-inch aluminium right angle that I've got.
Yeah, that gives you hitch
And
space.
then push it 25mm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that'll work. So D is ripping out the old genset feed. This is 6mm or 6mm squared. It's not big enough. We have some big stonking great stuff that's going in. Oh, sorry, there it is. Big stuff that's going in. He's about to fit that. Jess is about to leap into the battery box. We've got some Joe Damastic 90 mixed up. She's going to start painting over top of the rust kill that she did earlier in the day. That's now dry and ready to go. So once that's done, I'm starting to offload all the heavy stuff, such as the old inverters, the dead lead acid battery, that sort of thing, because it's really easy to get it off the boat now. It's very hard to get it off the boat when it's at our wharf, and the ute is very close to where we are here, so perfect opportunity. And then as soon as that's done, we have to pretty much move the boat before we run out of daylight today. So.
And Dee's already starting to talk about the genset, getting the exhaust finished, and we just got a wee bit of the water stuff to do. So.
Yeah, so D can do TIG welding as well, so he's going to crack into the welding of that possibly tomorrow, and while he's doing that, I'll do the aluminium mounts that are going to mount the inverters into the battery room. And I need the paint that Jess is about to put in, I need that dry to be able to do the mounts for the inverters. So there's lots of sequence happening of all three different, people doing multiple different jobs. So
about half an hour we've got to move this boat back to the normal berth. So
we've been waiting for the tide because the bottom of the boat's been sitting in the mud for the day. So where we are, there's just not enough water to basically move. But yeah, basically we need to crack on before we lose daylight. A fitting end to our Oompa Loompa, last one to leave the boat, sitting on a work dock about to be towed down to the scrapyard. We've got 2 of these off the boat now, and we've got the big lead acid battery that died the other day on the start system. That's also been dragged up, last thing to go. Okay, these are our cladding boards. Because they're very close to the edge here, we don't want rubbish going under there and not being able to clean it out. So we're going to be using, Fixtech 15. So this is a paintable sealant, and we're going to just basically run a bead along the bottom of those boards there so that we can stop rubbish going under the board, and then we can just paint up and over and make a beautiful sort of seam. With the paintable sealant in, we've got a nice radius on the bottom of these boards. It's time to start refreshing the paint using a 2-pack polyurethane white. Look at that, resplendent in white. So that stinks like you would not believe. This is the most smelliest paint in the history of the world. So we're going to let that off gas for as long as we can. We're probably just going to walk away from this for the day and carry on with something else at the other end of the boat. So D is downstairs currently welding up a stainless frame that's going to hold the electrical control box for the genset. So once we've got that mounted, he can then do all of the wiring for the genset, and we can theoretically power the entire boat up running the genset. I'm going to focus on something else genset wise, probably exhaust right away, and we also need to resolve the last little bits of the water pipes. So we've got to put the radiator cap in and a few other bits and pieces. Going to change the design slightly on the water pipes. Had a bit of a think about it, not happy with it. Don't like the weight of that water tank sitting up on top of those pipes. So we're going to change that, move that over to the engine, put a rubber pipe from the tank across over to the water pipes, the keel cooling pipes. So got to modify that as well, get all of that done, and then we can basically start up running on the genset.